The year is 2013. You found an NB Mazda Miata for $1,500 and decided to learn how to drift. As you do all the things you probably shouldn't on roads where people know you think about how it can't get much better. And you'd be right, it won't. Over the years, companies like Mitsubishi, Subaru, Nissan, and even Mazda have fallen into a rut where I'm not sure what to expect from them, and I'm not entirely sure they do either. I'm Alex, AlexMartini with 2 underscores on Instagram, and today we're talking about cars. More specifically, you and I are talking about just what's happening over at Mazda. The numbers don't lie. In 2011, Mazda was making $24.5 billion in cars, or 1.2 million fun sedans. And in 2017, they peaked to 1.6 million. But in 2022, they were down to 1.1 million cars, or 26 billion in sales. But to help us focus on the positive, let's start off with the exciting things that could help us maybe think that Mazda is on the up. Mazda released an announcement to launch Spirit Racing, a suited version of Mazda Speed, because apparently that's too childish. Gazoo Racing, I'm looking at you. Okay, anyway, it would come to the Mazda Miata and Mazda 3 if the two concepts get approved for production. The Mazda Miata had some improved engine goodies from its race-bred brother over at the Japanese Super Tycoon Racing series, which was pretty cool, and the Mazda 3 is just so the Mazda Miata didn't feel alone on the stage. But there's a key word in what I just said, and you probably heard it too, if. And that's not all. Mazda expanded its racing program to follow what Nissan did with Gran Turismo, offering esports players the ability to race for real. A dream most people would run on sim rigs that they could only dream of. That's a pretty good, cool thing, right? But like most Star Wars fans that pre-order tickets for the newest movies, I'm a bit nervous about all of this, and here's why. A quick look to the concept cars list that Mazda has introduced over the years is longer than the actual list of cars I think they've ever made. And since Daddy Ford no longer owns the company and the majority brand was now replaced by Toyota, the only thing seems to come out of this brand these days is just like more SUVs. And SUVs are ruling the world, which would make me want to slam my head into this solid piece of wood right here, but I understand why they have to do it. I just wish. And I'm worried about that yet again, that we'll actually get GTA 6 before we get either of these cars. After all, there are so many prototypes that Mazda has released over the years, but how many of those prototypes have actually turned into production vehicles? Even these up-trimmed Mazda Spirit racing cars. The Miata, of course, I mean, duh, and the Speed 3, but there's no mention of specifics to the car for something that's supposed to be released in just a couple months, just that the Miata could get an upgraded suspension. But the Mazda 3 got WRX-ified with some carbon accessories to make it stand out. So for some reason when Mazda does it, it's cool carbon accessories, but when Subaru does it, it's the cheapest way to fake an audience, if that ain't some fake-ass cheese curds that I've ever heard before in my life. But the support is different for Mazda, because there's still a glimmer of hope in one person there that could turn this from just prototypes and hope to the real thing. Because if this is like the 4th Matrix movie, I'm gonna probably just lose my shit. When Masahiro Moro came in and called the Mazda Speed name immature, he didn't necessarily make many friends. But on January 16th, he made a lot of friends when he announced at the Tokyo Motor Show that on February 1st, they'd be launching a Rotary engine development group to try and make their most recent concept, the SP Hybrid, to be powered by some version of a rotary engine. You wanna know the community response? It was this. That's fair. But it was also this. Equally fair, slightly concerning. But that's good, right? Well, you know, I mean, because the Mazda 3 fanatics of old are waiting still for the time that they announced that they were gonna come back with a turbocharged all-wheel drive manual car they've been promised for 8 years. And the Mazda 6 has been on and off for competing with BMW for years now too. And what we're left with is something that blends in and isn't nearly as fun as it once was. But that idea somewhat died off as well, which is why it seems Mazda is not really ran off of like oil, gas, EV, or anything else. It's ran off of rumors. Go anywhere on the internet where people are asking for ideas on cars to buy that are fun, peppy, and don't take themselves too seriously, and you will undoubtedly find the Mazda Miata, the Mazda Speed 3, a picture of me turned into a 4-door car, or old Speed 6s in the list of 3 or 4 other cars like a BRZ S2000, or if you're an adult, you can get an SI and you'll never make a mistake again in your life. But the people who have been bit by the zoom messaging are doing literally everything they can to support this brand, even as its decisions tell you that it's not really getting any closer to being the brand that it once was. But rumor mills can keep the lights on at Lumbridge, and I think Mazda, they almost do it on purpose. Every 6 months, Mazda drops something small to keep its enthusiast population thriving. It's like a morsel of love, akin to like a Saturday night snap from the one that got away, where it's like, hey, Rotaries are coming back! And everybody's like, oh! Hey, we're gonna make a we're gonna make a cool car with a manual! And the audience is like, what the f? That may have been an over-exaggeration, but not really when you spend time on Reddit. Okay, we have all become the volunteer Discord mods for the Amaruth, or however you say that woman's name, of car manufacturers like Mazda. And for the most part, no one seems to mind just blindly loving the brand that isn't really doing much for them anymore. But when Mazda Speed 3 came into this world of car enthusiasts to compete with the SRT4, the Focus ST, and GTI, it represented a brand that was what it wasn't ashamed of, just fun, peppy cars. A front-wheel drive car with 263 horsepower, hot hatch, let's go, baby. Are you a dad that hates cars? Then just get the base model and you'd be happy. The car won so many awards for being a capable, well-rounded car. It was perfect. The Mazda Speed 6 was that on steroids with all-wheel drive, 274 horsepower as a sedan. Not aimed to take on the Evos or STIs of the world, but to become the best handling sedan Mazda ever made, and people love it, and to this day, people love it. Mazda at the time still had the MPV, the B Series, and Mazda 5 at the time. Could they do with a few more SUVs to widen their portfolio? Sure, every brand needs SUVs, but to kill some of the core cars that made Mazda so fantastic seems kind of silly to do. And this is where a lot of these brands have a tendency to go, and there's two path. You can either go down the Porsche path or even worse, the Mitsubishi model. You don't need to look far to see the car brands of the 90s are sunsetting into some weird, ugly little 100,000 mile, 10-year warranty programs as it loses to competitors like Kia and Hyundai, who seem to have perfected the affordable, fun, exciting, yet not too exciting brand model of American capitalism. But even as the days of the GTO and Evo, VR4 and Pajero are what we, with the brand, thought it was, slowly started to lose itself to sales, to other companies, for capital. Mitsubishi sold to Daimler in 2009 and Nissan in 2016, and then Nissan exposed Mitsubishi for lying about its fuel economy numbers. It's like, bro, I thought you were on my team. That sort of stuff started to kill what Mitsubishi once was, and it was bad decision after bad decision, continuing to ignore its core audience. Why even bring up Porsche? Because that is probably one of the few brands that have done it right. They've been so close to bankruptcy so many times, and the only thing that seemed to have saved them multiple times was making an ugly version of their car that was somehow bigger, wider, heavier, and for some reason appealed to almost everyone in the United States, the Macan and the Cayenne. Those two vehicles systematically pushed Porsche even further into making their mark car, which was the 911. And without those SUVs, the 911 just wouldn't be a thing. Porsche knew that, Porsche did it right, Porsche's still Porsche. So when Porsche jumped into making SUVs, it wasn't that they continued down that path to make even more money, they found out exactly how many they needed to make to continue being the brand that they were always known for. Being a sports car company. But Mazda people, those angry, usually shorter and more creative loves that we know them as, want Mazda to keep going because it does still have that heart. Most people want Mazda to win. We want it to win. The cars they made were fun, exciting, and different. A marquee to not taking itself too seriously while still delivering what was needed without the price points of BMW or Nissan. Mazda knows what the people want, and that's just a sports car. That isn't just a Miata. A car that can connect the dots of daily drivability like the Mazda Speed 3. And while everyone is focusing on EVs and the development of hybrid technology, Mazda stands as one of the last brands that can give the minority people like us a fun car that isn't as much as a house. But where do you think Mazda's heading? Don't forget to subscribe. I'm Alex, AlexMartini with 2 underscores on Instagram, and we'll see you on the next one.